I remember the first time I wanted to get into CO2 and I was so intimidated by it because I wanted to grow things like this Monte Carlo and S. repens in this little cube, but I thought CO2 was going to be way too hard to set up. And the truth is, it actually isn't. And there's a really easy way to do it that takes all the guesswork out of it and makes it super simple. And it's just doing a kit like this ISTA kit. So let's see what's inside. The thing I love about this kit is literally everything's in it. This is actually the first kit I ever used to set up CO2 myself. And the first thing that I'll just point out are these instructions. Really easy to follow, 9 steps, and you go from 0 to have fully working CO2 on your tank. And the other thing is this complete cylinder. So you don't have to, like you typically would, buy a cylinder, then go find some place where you can get it filled. This is a totally filled cylinder. And I can tell you right now, I've run something this size on a tank that size for at least 6 months, no problem. So you're not gonna fill this up anytime soon. And they actually have replacements for these. So you can just order this in the future. Then we've got a base. So we'll put that together. This is going to hold the base. Got that. We got our airline tubing and more than enough. Plenty there, so we're all good. And we've got our indicator solution, which is great. Make sure we have the right CO2 going in. This little guy is going to stick on the inside of the aquarium, and it's going to let you know based on the color of that solution if your CO2 is where it should be. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. It's even got this cool thing, which is actually kind of nice. You know, this is sort of underestimated. This is going to keep your inline, or I should say your CO2 airline tubing up and over the back of your tank instead of having it like fluff out like this. You'll see what I mean in a little bit. Then we've got our regulator, and this also has a solenoid in it and your valve letting you know what your CO2 pressure is. So that's a pretty cool all-in-one system, especially for the price. And speaking of all-in-one systems, the last thing we got is really a 3-in-1. You've got a check valve. This is going to keep the water from coming back down the tube and into your solenoid. You've got a, well, going this way, I should say. You've got a bubble counter. So this space right here is going to tell you how much CO2 by way of the bubbles going up is going in your aquarium. And then you've got your diffuser up here. All of these things can be replaced. So if you want a different look, I'll show you a couple different options. You can still use this whole setup and then just get a couple of the cheaper things like a new diffuser or a bubble counter, not very expensive. And so you can add those on if that's your preference. So now that we got it all laid out, let's put it together. All right, it says the first thing you want to do is put the regulator solenoid on the cylinder, but I'd rather build a stand to put the cylinder into. So I'm going to move to step 2 first. And here's your little stand, and this has teeth right here that these are going to go into. Here's a couple pro tips. All right, number 1, put it this direction, not this direction. Number 2 is come back here and hold this up like that so that this can slide in easily like this. Leave one of these open. That's the distance that you want to put it in. Otherwise, the cylinder is going to hit these things. So let me finish that real quick. All right, got the stand together. That only took a few seconds, so easy to do. Let's pull out the cylinder and we'll get that in there. You will notice this little ring on here, which you're actually not going to need. So I'm gonna just cut that and we'll take that off and set it aside and then just start screwing it on. Okay, that's as far as the threads are gonna go. Just could be finger tight. You don't have to wrench it down. And now let's go to the next step. All right. We have that in there, and now it's time to connect the CO2 hose to the regulator. So we've got our hose here, and we got the regulator here. So the way this is gonna work is you're gonna want to detach this, and then you're gonna take that little guy and slide it. So this is the outside sliding in like this, because this is what's going to clamp it down onto this part right here. And this should slide on pretty easily. And then you can clamp that on there just like that. That you're gonna wanna make sure is tight because you wanna make sure that there's no leaks. All right, we're literally almost there. There's only a few things you have to do and then you have CO2 on your tank. We're gonna open up this indicator solution right here and pop off the back of this. And we're just gonna fill this up with the solution, just like that. And the solution goes in blue. And then what's gonna happen is, and don't put in too much or you're gonna pop it all out the sides. What's gonna happen is this is going to end up turning yellow if you have too much CO2, and it's gonna end up turning green if you have just the right amount of CO2. So where you're gonna wanna put that is in your tank, something just like this. Okay? So we'll leave that there. That's gonna take probably a couple hours. It could take maybe even a little bit longer to settle in, so don't expect any immediate changes on that. Give it a day, give it half a day, and then you'll start to see the color start to change and you'll know whether you need to turn up the CO2 or turn it down. Okay, the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna get this bubble counter diffuser ready, and one of the things you have to do first is take off the top and then take out the diffuser plate right here. Okay, this is what makes all the bubbles really small. And what you're gonna wanna do is just fill this with tank water, because when you do, then you can look down here and you'll see the little CO2 bubbles going up here. Well, they're actually gonna be a little bit bigger. And the rate at which they're going up is your indication as to how much CO2 is going into the tank. You can actually count that as bubbles per second. So 2 bubbles per second, almost forgot the diffuser. 2 bubbles per second, or a bubble a second, is about where you want to be. And then if you feel like you need to turn it up or turn it down based upon your indicator solution, you can just dial it up or dial it down. Pretty simple, right? So, all right, we got that dialed in. Now, let's just take this over to the tank. All right, just to make this easy on showing you guys what I'm doing, I'm gonna set this all up right next to this tank. What you're gonna do is you're gonna run this over the back of your tank, and you're gonna put this in the cabinet under your tank, and all of this tubing is gonna run back here and run down into it in the back. So you're not gonna obviously see it alongside the tank just like this. But let me show you this little gizmo right here. This is going to clip to the back of your tank, just like this. And then the tubing is going to go through it, and it's got these little teeth that are gonna hold the tubing. And so if you just get that worked in, I'll get my hands out of the way in just a second so you can see kind of how it works. But you can see here that it's going to run your tubing nice and cleanly over the back of your tank instead of having it shooting out all over the place. When you're thinking about where to cut the tubing, think about putting it about 2 to 3 inches above the bottom of the tank. That way the bubbles have enough time to completely dissolve in your water. All right, once you have that tubing cut, you can just go ahead and put it right here on top of this. And then this is going to just go straight down into your tank. And it's gonna connect to the side wall. All right, as soon as you plug it in, you're gonna see this light turn on. You're gonna hear a little click. That's how you know you're ready to go. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna open up the pressure in the canister. So we're gonna open that up like this. And then, as you turn this around, you'll see that you've got positive pressure over here. And then this is the knob that's gonna control the amount of CO2 that goes into your aquarium. So if you take a look at the diffuser right now, you can see that I've moved this forward just so that you guys can see it a little bit easier, but obviously you'd have it in the back of your aquarium. And one of the things you're gonna notice when you first turn it on is that gas won't immediately come out of here. Don't let that bother you. Actually turn this on pretty far, and in a few seconds, the gas will start going. It might take upwards of a minute at the most, but the gas will start coming in, and then you can dial it back. So now you can see it's coming in, and that's way more than you want. So I'm gonna dial it back just a little bit. And I can tell you from using this system in the past, at least for an aquarium of this size, the right area to have this, or the right tightness to have this, is almost like it's off. It will feel like it's off, but it's just slightly on. And you'll start to notice that as the diffuser gets soaked more, these bubbles will start to all be fine, small little bubbles, which is what you want instead of these bigger ones. And then you want to start paying attention to this. If this gets yellow, tighten this a little bit. If this goes green, you're good to go, and then leave it alone, and you shouldn't have to touch anything. Okay, in 9 easy steps, you've got CO2 in your aquarium. And one bonus tip that I want to tell you, it's actually not a bonus tip, it's something you literally need to do. Plug this into a timer. Don't plug it into the wall. You actually don't run your CO2 all the time. You only want it to turn on about an hour before your light, and then turn off when your light turns off. And that has to do with the photosynthesis going on with your plants. So that's no big deal. Just make sure you use just a cheap timer you can get at Home Depot or something like that. And then lastly, if you want to know more about CO2 and the upgrades and the next levels of CO2, check out these videos right here, and they'll tell you everything you need to know about the next step.